This video is for training purposes only. It is prohibited from being copied, distributed, or shared. The concepts, statistics, and ideas do not necessarily represent those of World Financial Group and Transamerica Financial Advisors.
Hey, welcome guys. I'm excited to show you this concept. It was one of the first concepts that I actually saw in person, and when I saw this, totally revolutionized the way that I thought about money. And this concept alone, in my opinion, changed the way that I saved money, the way that I managed money, and the way that I grew money. And so I think that you guys should be able to use this concept on mostly every one of your meetings and blow people away. Never forget that just because you've seen a concept over and over and it's kind of old in your mind, it's always new the first time someone sees it, and that impact that you had the first time you saw it is what's happening to them right then and there. So this concept is the Rule of 72. I'm excited to share it with you because I do something a little bit differently than you see on most of the slides from the company. The Rule of 72 can be impactful if you lower the numbers to a reasonable amount of money that someone may save. And so let's talk about that. So let's assume for a minute that you're teaching somebody the Rule of 72. Let's assume that they have a baby. And I always say, listen, you may know somebody, or you may have, or your aunt or uncle, or somebody in your family, somebody has a newborn baby. So keep that in mind as we start the story. So here we go. I always start by saying, I want to teach you the Rule of 72. You may or may not have heard the Rule of 72, but the Rule of 72 was basically an approximation discovered by Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein's a pretty smart guy, we can all agree upon that. And so what he does is he basically takes an interest rate and divides it into 72, and that will tell you how long it's going to take for your money to double if you're earning that interest rate. If you are having that interest rate work against you, i.e. a credit card, then it's going to take how long it's going to take for your money to double against you, i.e. debt. Okay? So here's what we're going to talk about. Let's assume for a minute we're positive people. So let's assume for a minute we're going to earn 6% interest. If we're earning 6% interest, you divide 6 into 72, 6 goes in 12 times. So if we take that newborn baby, for example, and we saved $100. Now, not every month, not every year, not every 10 years, just one time we saved that $100. What would that be when the baby is at a typical retirement age of, let's say, age 60, okay? So the rule works, 6 goes into 72 12 times. That means the money will double every 12 years. So 12, 24, 36, 48, and finally age 60. So now that doubles to 200, then doubles to 400, doubles to 800, 1,600, $3,200. Now, that doesn't really light you up. It doesn't say, my son or daughter is not going to say, Dad, I'm so thankful that you were able to save this $3,200 for me when I'm 60 years old. I don't know, but that might be able to buy a tank of gas when they're 60 years old. I have no idea. But what I do know is it was only $100 one time. And so, hey, if it earned to up to $3,200, could you imagine if you saved $100 every year, or $100 every month, or $100 every 2 weeks? Or what if you put an extra zero on that and it was $1,000, make it to 32, right? Or $10,000, 320. You can see the power of compound interest. Now, here's what I always tell people. What if we double the interest rate from 6 to 12? Now, we know that 6 is 2 times as much as 12, or 12 is 2 times as much as 6, and this number down here should double, theoretically. We should have $6,400, but that's not the way the rule works. The rule works like this. 12 goes into 72 6 times. So that same $100 goes in at 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, and finally 60. So we're going to do some math here, and what I would encourage you to do is you need to memorize this. Don't try this in front of your client if you don't have these numbers memorized, because you're going to look pretty silly if you don't know what you're talking about and you mess this up. So memorize these numbers. So 100 doubles to 200, then to 400, then to 800, then to 1,600, then 3,200, 6,400, 12,800. I'm going to round that up to 13 just so it's easier to add, right? And I tell that client that, and they're usually fine with it, right? So now we're at to 26,000. Then we're at $52,000. Now we're at $104,000. That is a huge difference between the 3,200 and the 104. It's $100,000 difference. Why is that? It's the same $100. It's the same child. It's the same parent. It's the same time period. What's the difference? Obviously, we know the interest rate. So here's the key. Most people are going to want to know, okay, that sounds great, James, but how do I go out and get 12, 8, 9, 10, 12% interest rates? I'm not familiar with that. And that's where we teach them in the next segment, and one of the other concepts where they can get that. And so if you don't know, you can take a look at the S&P 500, for example, and since its inception, it's roughly around 10%. And so that's a large company growth. Small cap growth is over 12. And so here's the key, though. What I tell people is, this is the problem in America today. We are so happy and content to save our money at 6% interest rates and below, i.e. a savings account, paying next to nothing right now, right? The savings account, everybody stacks their money in there because they believe it's safe, right? And it's less than 1%, as we just mentioned. Then they turn around and they borrow money at 12% and higher on credit cards, debts, other things. Credit cards are in the teens, the 20s. Could you imagine what you're doing if you've got a credit card at 36% interest? If you think I'm crazy, by the way, the highest credit card rate is through the roof. It's something in the neighborhood of 60, 70%. But let's assume for a minute you had 18% interest credit card, which is pretty reasonable. 18% credit card, you're looking at that money doubling against you every 3 years, right? Or 4 years, excuse me. And so every 4 years, that money's doubling against you on a credit card. So here's what we do at World Financial Group and Transamerica. We help you get your debts at 5, 4, 3 and below, and then we educate you on how to get your rates of return for your money at 8, 9, 10, 12 and above. That's what we do. This rule totally changed my life when I understood how compound interest is my friend. Compound interest works for us or against us every day, every night. When we're sleeping, it does everything it should. It's working. So guys, make sure you get your clients to understand this, study this, listen to this. Make sure you can do it on a piece of paper, memorize the numbers so you don't look silly, and I hope you can use this concept in your one-on-ones and your prospecting. Take care.